Welcome, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Blank Canvas. I am Mr. No Show,
And I'm 72 the architect.
and today it's going to be a very interesting one, nonetheless, because we are deciding to talk about.
Medicine versus escape. What are you trying to talk about? What are you trying to do today? Are you trying to get medicated or are you just trying to escape reality? And usually we do on blank canvas in the morning, we do like some daily stoic or we read something, but today we're going to just go right into the episode and get right down to business.
That's right. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of interesting things we have today. Are people more dependent on the feeling versus the actual medicinal use? Can expectation of medicine heal our wounds? What do we all expect to get when taking medicine? And more questions in the follow ups. But my man Jay, what intrigues you about this title that we have here for those who are listening?
Well, for quite a while, I've been kind of interested in this topic because I've been trying to research, food, health. I got diabetes. Sometimes I have a hard time going to sleep. Stress gets to me. I've been looking at different things of what I use. And it's been very, very important to kind of understand, like, how far am I willing to take it versus can I just go to sleep naturally? Can I feel rejuvenated? What are different things that I'm taking that are harming my health? So on and so forth. So it's definitely been an important topic for me. Uh, Especially, it's like, juggling a career, being a dad, being a partner, um you name it, you what have it, the normal walks of life, days of life. You got so many things that affect your energy and your mental vitality. Then it affects your body. So those are reasons why I wanted to check it out.
Now, as the days go on and the nights come to ease our sufferings, do you find yourself taking an Advil, Tylenol, smoke some weed, take a psychedelic? Do you find yourself taking any kind of medicinal items to go to bed?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It really depends. Like, have I experimented with cannabis? Yeah. Have I taken melatonin? Yeah. Have I had a prescription for because so much stress? Yeah. There's been different things that have explored, but what do I try to keep? I try to do it all natural. That's the best way, for
It's hard though.
longevity. Yeah, I mean,
That natural.
there's so many things that affect your brain waves, like from the TV to your screen, your computer screen, your phone, the blue light that's coming through. There's a lot of things that affect your impulses and your receptors through your eyes to the rest of your body, and then even what you hear. Some people have a bad vibration, and like, can you imagine like working for social services or something like that, and people just complaining all day, I didn't get my check, or you know what, I'm starving, I'm gonna go homeless, and people just unload on you every
Mhm.
day. And then, or imagine it being a CEO or a CFO of a major company, and your middle management isn't doing their job right, and you're constantly having to, what's going on with my company, or even down to a small business owner. It affects us all in different ways.
It really does. And to understand how we all process these certain events in our life, whether it be from not receiving the check from a contract that the contractors were supposed to pay me on, and waiting for months in advance and then falling short on my bills because that contractor couldn't keep their word, or they just wanted to hold the check in time to make sure that, they can actually write you a check for later days. Then you also have to deal with worrying about family members getting fed as well as yourself, unless it's you just solo out there who just want to eat, get money, have fun for the rest of your life, be a bachelor, a bachelorette, however it is. And then you got to understand that people love being outdoors and adventurous. And then when that gets shut off because they get hurt or injured and they don't have the funds to take care of that, who's going to actually look into these? It's almost like a control factor. And having this build up, it really plays on the mind because it's like an anxiety that just keeps on attacking us. And for us to really sit here and focus on the betterment of our mental health, wouldn't it be harder to take away from the chemical or the external chemicals versus the internal?
Yeah, I mean, you can think about it that way too. I mean, like how far do we take drugs? Like, say if you get seriously injured, and how do you stop? How do you cut off? Like, say, like if you guys maybe had your knee busted up so bad you had to take a serious opioid, right? Think about that and how those opioids are addicting. You're approaching addiction. Are you feeling phantom pains? Is it all in your head? Or your body just adjusted to something that's foreign to it and says, "Oh, hey, give me more. Give me the candy. Come on, daddy, give me some candy. Come on."
Give me the candy. It's crazy because do you want the opioids versus the cannabis or the CBD, right? And it's crazy just thinking about that. Do we want opioids? I know when I went for my foot doctor, I had trouble with my foot and they tried to give me some kind of pain reliever. They gave me a hydrocodone and they gave
Mhm.
me something else for the release of the tissue in my foot. I looked at him and said, "Wait a minute, hold on. I don't. Why don't you just give me something better than this? Why do I have to take a medicine to heal plantar fasciitis? Why can't there be something different to use?" So I did my own research and I found out that going online on YouTube, which is deemed as not the best doctor results to do, and I went to YouTube, got some information on how to handle plantar fasciitis. Those little quarter machines that you can get those little bouncy balls, those big huge bouncy
Yeah,
balls
yeah,
from.
yeah.
I
Mhm.
put a quarter in and got me one of those. And the video said you get one of those balls and you roll the ball of your heel onto it. I said, wait a minute. I got this for 25 cents of relief, stress gone, anxiety gone, pressure. It was hard for me to walk because the buildup was so tense. When I went to
Mhm.
go run, it would just cramp up on me. It's like needles in your heel. So I needed to get rid of this pain so I could continue with my works. Come to find out, I had to spend use my insurance was like $60 for the doctor visit just to show up to get a prescription for something that probably would have had me doped up and drugged up and continuing to come back for some more. It's just
And
crazy.
and and if you think about it, why when you get health insurance, it gives you such a discount on a drug, right? But if you were just paying cash, well, do you have a generic? "Nah, no, we don't have a generic for this one." "Well, why not?" "Well, because this company owns the right." And then we've seen constantly, drug companies boost up prices for treatments.
Right.
And it doesn't stop it just like for your pain. It also continues, like, say, like, I'm diabetic, right?
Mhm.
I'm not on insulin, right now. It can change, but right now I'm just taking like metformin and was it glyburide or something like that to help me manage my blood sugar. So imagine it's not just like medicine, but like also what can we do alternatively? Like, are we always going to a pharmacy to get, for our needs, or are there alternative methods
Hmm.
that maybe you're not recognized and even considered illegal to a degree, you
People
know?
love going to pharmacies, bro.
Well,
There's no
do
question
I
about
wanna
that.
see that woman or man in the white coat all the time? I come to the counter, "You ain't got a stethoscope? Here, I got what you need. How much? How much you got?" You
But I
know?
mean, that's kind of the mentality game, right? People are created to feel this way that they need to go to this doctor, to this pharmacy, and get that kind of prescription because it was deemed this medicine will support you. But then when you look at all the side effects on what that one particular medicine can do or cause harm to, is like I'm taking medicine that I know is going to hurt me or
True.
possibly break me down. So it's like, how valuable am I living if I'm depending on these medicines? Because I done knew a lot of people who used to wake up, take a pill, lunchtime, take another pill. And this is talking about 20 something years old, not 50 or 60 something years old. This is a young kid. There's people out there trying to make money. And when you understand that this is the concept of dealing with the mental state, a lot of people from 2013 it's a statistic was showing me that people were more dependent. It was a number two drug. Antidepressants was a number two drug, right behind heart attack medicine and strokes and diabetes. So it's like people are going to these doctors. They going to these white coats because they have to. And I feel as if what caused those initial problems was going to the white coats in general. Like what happened to the herbologist, right? What happened to the person who was studying natural homeopathic medicine and remedies? Like why did we do away with those? And when you start seeing that curve and that question come around and present itself to you, maybe today, 20 years from now, 2 weeks from now, you'll start developing this notion of like, damn, do I really need just this for that, or can I just take these for those? I'll take turmeric now for alleviation of my inflammation. Ginger, garlic, right? I'll do that on a constant.
What about dandelion? Like, look at dandelion, it's
Yeah,
anti-inflammatory, that grows wild,
wow,
that's not
free,
it's free. Now
free.
now my lady, she involves a lot of these herbs and things, like, in, like, teas and treatments, and she'll tell me, "Babe, you when I have to add I'm gonna make a concoction that has some aloe vera for your inflammation and all this other stuff." I'm like, "Excuse me, I'm gonna drink aloe vera?" She's like, "Yeah, yeah, you're gonna mix it with other things." So you got turmeric. What else do you got? I mean, turmeric with
Cayenne
black pepper is
pepper.
an activating agent, but
Yeah.
and then there's the pharmaceutical industry is trying to talk to the FDA and making these alternative medications or supplements and minerals illegal. Like, but yet they'll legalize like melatonin. They'll talk about they're trying to make things like, in my opinion, what is it? Magnesium. And there's several different types of magnesium. What does that do? Relaxes your muscles,
Mm.
relaxes your mind to help you get to sleep.
Helps the blood flow. Hell yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. But when you look at, like, for example, melatonin, um, it is something your brain naturally produces. But do we realize the effects of, we have so much blue light going into our eyes, right? Your camera, your phone, your camera, your computer screen, your TV, that nice flat screen TV you bought for Christmas or Super Bowl Sunday. Guess what? You know how much blue light that comes out of those things? The bigger it is, the bigger the feed to you, and it helps develop other ailments. They're saying glaucoma. I was reading an article where glaucoma is on the rise. What do people fight glaucoma? Cannabis. People use cannabis, either smoking the weed, eating the gummy, or popping the pill, or eating the chocolate. It's helping the inflammation, the
Well, check
digestion.
this out. My biggest fear is how readily available it is. Remember, we talked about this before. Convenience, it could be a troublesome thing. When we look at how weed is being concocted or being distributed now today when it was illegal 20 something years ago, right?
Mhm.
How in our mind are we sitting here thinking like, okay, this is okay that now that it's legal in their eyes. Now it's under the people that hold big pharma to an account. We're talking about, I don't want to say any names, but we have companies who are working with companies under one entity or umbrella that's something like a black something, and then we're dealing with this because these companies have the say so. They have the means, the funds to produce this content. So when you look at certain dispensaries and the contracts they get, they're selling this stuff. Now it's just not like no other green. It's the green that is supersized. It's super potent, super powered. It's like
Right.
super.
Now think about this. There are herbs that they've declared for a long time. I mean, we're going a little out of order, but I'm gonna bring it right back home to where we start. Are you really trying to fight the feeling, or are you trying to treat the ailment, the problem?
Mm,
Some medications have a limitation, and they should, because of the addicting effects of what they do to us. My father was addicted to heroin. How did he get addicted to heroin? Well, he got shot in Vietnam. So guess what? Weed wasn't enough. Hey, give me a super dose, supersize me. you know help me get away from my nightmares in my head. PTSD is a big thing. But now for a long time, for the last 50 years or 60 years, basically, like psychedelics is now being introduced as a possible treatment for mental illnesses. People with PTSD, people with schizophrenia, people, you wouldn't think that, like, okay, these things are supposed to mess us up more, right?
Mm-mm.
But you look at, like, say, like cannabis, more in the United States alone, there are more states that are decriminalizing it, legalizing it. There are a few holdout states. Matter of fact, let me show you a map of our country, and it will show basically, let's see, let me find the right one. Okay, here we go. So we're now looking at, the legal states. So dark green means that it's legalized, right? Lighter green means it's medical and decriminalized. The next lighter green is medical, and the next lighter green before that is decriminalized. Then the gray is CBD, and the last one, fully illegal. So what states are fully illegal? Idaho is definitely one of them. You've got Nebraska, you've got Georgia, you know, and what's the other state? I think that's Wyoming,
South
I believe.
Carolina.
Yeah. Oh, and South Carolina, you know, but you've got, like, you look at Texas, one of the biggest states in the union, they're a holdout. They're like, no, you only get CBD lotions. That's it. You ain't getting nothing
I
else.
mean, is that a bad thing though? I mean, if you look at everywhere else and the craziness that's going on with the legality of weed, California, everybody's fleeing from. Oregon, the drug rate is gone up. Then you have, I mean, New Mexico near Arizona, Nevada as well. It just seems like all the greener states are dealing with setbacks. It just New York as well. Is that Pennsylvania up there?
Mhm.
Delaware, Rhode Island. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? But look at Georgia,
Don't
right?
forget our friends in Alaska and Hawaii. Like, look at them. They're like, oh,
I
hey,
mean, I don't know what
Alaska,
the
especially.
drug
That's
rate in
cold. That's a
Alaska
cold
is.
state.
Who knows what is in Alaska, right? But I mean, we have to talk to PDE. We haven't talked to him in a minute, but we'll have to see what's cracking out that way in the good old Alaskan air. But just looking at New Mexico, like all these states, I just find it interesting how Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, is it Kentucky,
Hmm.
um, Illinois, not Illinois.
Illinois.
Illinois is fully green. Yeah, it's just amazing these states right here, the good old South, outside of
Wasn't
Alabama,
there Wisconsin
really.
also? Wisconsin's like, no, 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 you're not gonna come and play here.
I mean, it's amazing because these areas, these regions are holding steadfast against all the other states. And now that you see, wait, is Denver, Colorado, is like,
Oh, Colorado's fully legal. That's the one right in the middle. Like, here's Utah, and then there's
mm,
Colorado, and then right above it's Wyoming and Idaho. But you get right
interesting.
to it, you got Nebraska, and they're like, and then you got, what is it, Arkansas, I believe.
Hmm.
You got all those states. They're like, nah, nah, nah. And you know what happens to be? This is heavily religious areas. Believe it or not, you've got the Bible Belt. You got from all the way from Florida all the way up to West Virginia, as far west as Texas, and then you go up. You've got all these questionable states because they're looking at, like, look, we need to treat our spirit with the Holy Spirit. You know,
So is Texas the last remaining American state? I I feel like that's one of the independent. Like I see the Grays as fully independent states that won't
right?
have to deal with this because I don't see a lot of stories coming out about the drug uses around Texas and Georgia as much as I would hear about from Florida, New York, or California. Like
Hmm.
the three primary, I wouldn't expect anything less than that. And that's the most interesting idea behind that picture is because we see the map for what it is and what people are getting involved in. Now that the money discounts on drugs is hit the new market of marijuana. And when we look at how people deal with herbs using pain, or with how they deal with pain dealing with herbs, it's more or less the struggle in that method. So when we have this understanding, drugs to counteract other drugs during the pain cycle, what is that pain cycle that we're trying to heal? What is it about the people going to these other forms of method to get that release or that relief? Honestly, I don't like using ibuprofen. I don't honestly like using. I don't use Bayer. I don't like taking Tylenols. But there's some things that I'll have to take in the need. Right? If I have to take it, I'll take it.
Right.
Um, Sinus pressure medicine. I hate taking that as well.
Well,
You know,
look at
it,
when people are allergic to something, they take Benadryl. People take Benadryl just to go to sleep at night.
it
That's a
does knock a
fact.
motherfucker out
It makes you like,
though.
and they get these drug. I mean, they take people illegal drug manufacturers, people who make alternative medications. They'll take like Benadryl and Actifed and Sudafed, and they'll turn them into something else. They'll
Mm,
take
mhm.
what's in them I mean, look at the series Breaking Bad. That's what it that was basically what it was all about, is taking, other minerals and other drugs and making a super drug and like selling it on the street,
Right, right,
you know.
right.
So it's a problem, and then people have problems on top of problems. They can't mentally function or process what is really wrong with them because they're always going after the next fix. Like, okay, I just need to be medicated for a little bit so I can take you in. Well, is that really is that a feeling, or are you adopting anxiety? Like, look at
Mm,
these mental health conditions. You got bipolarism, schizophrenia, PTSD, ADHD, ADD. There is a drug for each ailment that you're suffering from. And it's like, and some people actually, you know what, without debate or argument, they have to have it, to function. Like, you don't want someone who has schizophrenia or bipolar to go postal at Target, you know, and that happens. And more people are being affected by, their drug use. Psychiatrists are prescribing things that they can't wean off. Look at Adderall, Ritalin. These are things that are very potent mental drugs for help people process their lives. And people complain, well, I feel numbed up all the time. I don't feel like I'm me. And they get off it, and there are serious side effects. So your mic is muted for some
that's
reason.
that block, right? That's that block between finding people's personality. When I used to hang out with homeboys. We used to go into those stores, and they would allegedly leave with certain items that you could literally break down and add to
Mhm.
certain other things. And then you start seeing movies that do the same snippets. They start
Right.
producing this content, and then you start seeing, oh, if someone buys this amount of fertilizer, they're going under the FDA's, bomb watch out list, or and it's crazy just to even think that this is happening. We
Right.
can go to a real whole store and get the chemicals already in the store to compose, or not compose, but to put together a toxin. Now, fentanyl for the last since 2019 was another big thing, another opioid that came
Oh,
through that started wreaking havoc on the population. And just people getting laced up with extra, whatever drug they put it with. It could be a pill, it could be weed, whatever they choose. Just to even know that that was going on, and who the major distributor of fentanyl was, and where it was coming from. That is the overall message that we're seeing, and it's just all flooding inside here quick. And we don't you and I are not the ones that are making these trips. We're not making these plans or setting
nope.
these business transactions up. Some of the top people are. When you start looking at situations with certain governors before their presidencies, I'm not going to say names, but certain governors during their presidencies, and then they get their they get to that elite status because of that. And now that we look at people like you and me who has to deal with those who were relying on certain pills, have you ever met somebody who was pilled out? For, I mean, I'm talking about like not just a couple days. I'm talking about for years. Like, you can see the actions. I used to have old homeboys call me if I knew anybody who had these things. So they're stuck in this block, like, because I can't go in my memories and be like, yo, remember we used to ball, go crazy, shoot hoops. Now I look at you, man. You're calling me looking to get the next numb fact. Like, wait a
Mhm.
minute, hold on. Where's the old guy? And you can't really connect with that person because there is a disconnect. There's something in their heads, all because of how the chain of command produced something to get it to in your neighborhood. Now people are feeding for it, and those people that I see every day are in that bubble who have to rely on certain things. I mean, people will go crazy for a cigarette, and if they don't
Just the
get
other
it
day,
fixed.
I went to a grocery store and these ladies, two ladies pulled up next to me and they're probably maybe 50 plus. You got a cigarette? No. And then the one lady in the passenger said, F you. I'm like, well, what? Just because I don't have a cigarette? What do I look like a smoker? But obviously and the bad thing was she took all her trash, threw it out her window. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I see you. And that doesn't mean that they're a totally bad person, but it's like, oh, if you're willing to do that and then telling me to F off because I don't have
You
a
know,
cigarette for you, come on. Really? You got to quit it, you know? And, but people are like that. They get irritable until they get their fix. And
mhm.
what are these chemical compounds going into that exactly? Like, what happens to really doing your own work? You know what I mean? What happens to really focusing on, like, let me really try to get down to the root of all my problems? Like maybe it's my bad program. Maybe I was raised wrong. I don't know. I mean, maybe I just have a bad memory that keeps interfering with my daily life, you
Mm.
know? And that's why we have psychologists, psychotherapists, you have life coaches, you have people in the mental health industry. you know, they're all related to pharma as well as alternative medications and taking minerals. Like, how many minerals do you take? I take ashwagandha, I take um, you know, turmeric, pepper mixed with turmeric. So it's an activator. I take dandelion to help reduce. I do dandelion tea. It's readily sold to you in your grocery store. So, I mean, is it really? And then we're taking drugs to fight other drugs or to fight the addictions. So, it's like where does it stop? Essentially, I'm not here to tell cannabis users, hey, stop using it. I'm just saying, one thing I notice after using cannabis, it affects me getting up in the morning. Like if I took, say, like sometimes a too strong of a dose, say like if I took a gummy, there's that lag and I'm trying to drink coffee, just and there's another drug. You're taking caffeine. How many
Coffee
people are popping Red Bulls,
all
and
day, bro. Just,
they don't feel themselves. Like, where does it stop? Like, what about
you
drinking your
know,
water?
I find it really amazing how I find 2 or 3 cups of coffee on people's desks when I was in the office, just drinking coffee and then refilling it throughout the day. And that's just one day. Imagine a week, then a year, then 10 years, then 20, and then retirement. Like your body's on all that fixed up on all that caffeine. Like it doesn't know how to separate itself from that caffeine. So when you have people who go crazy with Red Bulls, yo, I bless up to you. Hopefully your heart doesn't have skipping beats. Hope everything goes your way. I find it truly amazing though that we as people can pick and choose these feelings, whether it
Mhm.
be cigarettes, alcohol, weed, pills, heroin, PCP, LSD, whatever it is, psychedelics, shrooms, whatever it is, people want it. Like I remember the first time I smoked weed, it was the weirdest thing ever because I just fell asleep. And then the next time I smoked it, I had a totally different high. And then I was like, wait a minute, if I never smoked weed, what kind of person I'd be? Who knows? That's a question nobody can really answer unless you didn't smoke weed. But when I see people who give criticism to smoking weed versus drinking alcohol. There's a fight now. There's like, yo, weed is better than alcohol. It's like, but they're both something that you need to take in order to escape. Maybe they're not all that good. But then again, you'll have your person that comes around the corner and says, "Forget weed, forget alcohol. I'll take a pill here and there, right? I don't mind taking a little perk, a little lorazepam,
Yeah,
whatever
I
it
mean,
is."
it could be on that spectrum. I mean, I found an interesting article about sleep aids, right? And the what it was talking, it was from this website called Banner Health. The writer was Bobby Boyland. He was the contributing writer, and the article's titled "Are You Over a Counter Sleep Aid Risk to Taking Long Term?" Right, and when I was scrolling down, let me see if I can share the screen real quick, in that way everyone all can see what I'm talking about. Let's see. Um, okay, here we go. So when we're looking at, I was looking at the risks for sleep aid medications. Side effects associated with sleep aid medications include dry mouth, urinary retention, blurred vision, confusion, and constipation. Dr. Patel added the use of these medications is especially concerning in older and elderly individuals as they may be higher risk for confusion, dizziness, and falls. Many of these decongestants containing pseudoephedrine um, or allergy medications, Claritin D, can dangerously be dangerous to people with heart conditions, and those heart medications. The active ingredients constrict blood vessels that could put additional stress on the heart. Now, you go down and you look at dietary supplements. We talked briefly about melatonin, right? People are giving it to their kids. They're taking it for their sleep. Melatonin is a hormone that your body releases naturally when it's time to sleep. Taking melatonin triggers this response and helps your body relax. Some have reported the side effects, including headaches and confusion, but supplements are generally very safe and can be effective in adjustment of timing of your sleep phase. But the risk of these melatonin, chamomile, valerian root, saffron are generally safe options to help you fall asleep. A word caution, however, the FDA doesn't regulate the dietary supplements, which means there's no guarantee that the package contains what the manufacturers claim. So this is very interesting because when I went down and I read this article, it showed other potential things that I'm like, wait a minute, what are the real dangers? Prescription sleep aids are typically classified as sedative hypnotics. They are much stronger than OTC options and come in serious side effects, including dizziness, nausea, hallucination, depression, and more. Studies have also found links to increased heart risks, among other concerns. So, how are we getting to sleep? When you look at this article, you know, and just check out bannerhealth.com and you'll find the article. It was titled, hold on, let me get to it, over the counter sleep aid risks. And more people are buying this stuff. But here's what's also interesting. I'm going to click out of the screen real quick. Here's what's interesting. People are now taking, there's certain doses of cannabis that don't maybe not have the THC element, but focus more on other chemicals being introduced to the cannabis treatment, and it's causing complications. So it's now being like, hey, I can go to my dispensary, I can pick up, a gummy or whatever, a topical, and help me fall asleep. But are people really acclimated to their next day? Are they causing, if your kid's running amok, for example, and you're too high, and your kid runs into the stove, turns it on, gets burned, you're too high to even get up. I mean, I'm not arguing for that, but there are people and lawmakers that say, well, this is why we need to make it illegal. And it's like, wait, you're taking that possibility or likeliness of it happening, to endangering other people, but there's not enough evidence that, I mean, to me, cannabis is less dangerous than having alcohol, because alcohol will kill you in one day. You drink enough alcohol, and guess what? It can be all over. You can get blood alcohol poisoning, you know, um, and destroy your liver for good.
Right.
And
Right.
there are health agencies that won't give you a liver transplant if they find out you're an alcoholic.
What's the biggest case that we have here today? What is the biggest understanding between the body and the drug system? Do people even understand that? I don't think people really are paying attention to the powers of controlling the way your body operates.
Mhm.
I mean, I remember you used to tell me that you had an addiction to Coca Cola to the
Still
point
do.
where
Still do.
you still do. It's still a
Yeah,
hardship
I'm
for you,
trying to kick it. It's very strong,
right?
you know?
Just that, and then you have people who are addicted to cigarettes. It's a problem that our minds are attached to, right? And this goes into the OPRM1 um the OPRM1 gene. Just learning about how that indicates our addiction, our happiness, our highs, our lows. It's amazing what that one opioid receptor can do for our body.
Right. And then also when we're thinking about, exactly what's going on with our genetic design, we have things that we're taking that are altering our natural DNA. Believe it or not, as we get older, I mean, look at there's I've read things and they're inconclusive, but they're saying how people are developing Alzheimer's, dementia in later ages from taking certain things chemical based and drug based. We can't ignore that, and how far we're willing to take it. So there are books that are published even in our foods. Our foods have a lot of drugs and so forth, that it's like we have pesticides that have, what was the biggest lawsuit? Everyone kind of most people know about Monsanto. What did Monsanto used to produce? Roundup. What is that Roundup? There's like these bad chemical reactions that develop cancer and all kinds of other stuff, you know. So you
Yeah,
know,
my bad. Yeah, I mean it's important. I mean Monsanto is the biggest name in you know
and guess
creating
who owns them
deaths.
now? Guess who owns Monsanto right now? Bayer, Bayer. Just like Bayer aspirin, they own it. So, oh, we got another co-host coming in into view. We got little mamas, but hey, it's all right. We understand. But anyways, if we look at like all these big companies and what other industries they touch, you know, and the schedules of what these drugs are, whether it is an opioid or not. If even if it's not an opioid, I mean, there were some big drug scandals about. I remember it was the guy that went to prison for the EpiPen. He boosted the price for an EpiPen so high, and it was a major controversy, and still is. And what do we hear in politics? We hear politicians literally talking about how um they want to fight drug costs, they want universal health care, they want all these things, but do they really have that power? Most of the time they don't. you know they really have no. I mean, for a government to go and tell a company, yeah, you need to cut your prices, and they're like, okay, we don't have to sell to you. That's it. We can go somewhere else. Somebody else will buy it. But you go to other countries like Canada and Mexico, these same drugs that people take, to for escape, are a fraction of the price. And their licensing is completely different from ours. Their patenting completely different from ours. So yeah, it's something to consider. All right, Mr. No Show's on a brief momentary break.
I'm
There we
back.
go.
Yeah, I'm back. I just got to get her some crowns and keep her occupied until I get off the show. But what I missed, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just talking about, how um, the companies affect legislation, politics. People are willing to go to other countries to get their fixes or their needs met, or medical treatments. I mean, now we're now seeing, like, I have a map of the psychedelics. Psychedelics is now a brand new, revisited area where people are now really deciding, like, hey, you know what? I can't treat my bipolarism or ADD or PTSD. So they're now experimenting with LSD again. It was done. Research was done in the 50s and 60s. They said, "Oh hell no!" When the hippies came out, they're like, "Y'all are taking it." That means that the allegedly reports were that people were getting seriously brain damaged from taking these things. Yes, I agree that there is some effects, but people are now considering microdosing mushrooms that grow wild,
Mhm.
certain breeds of mushrooms. Matter of fact, there's this brand called Mud, right? Instead of drinking coffee, they take different mushroom roots and they blend it in to get you refocused and cognate into your daily life. It's
Okay.
easily affordable, but I've only read about, I haven't tried it, but they're saying, oh well, mushrooms. So let me show you guys real quick. According to the Globe, let's look at the psychedelics, map. Let me see if I can find it. Map of my addictions of pills. Let's see this one. No, wait. Trying to find it real quick. Oh, I disappeared. My bad. But I thought I had it clear in view. Okay, here we go. This is a global picture. Now, there are certain countries, say like take Brazil, right? And then you got Chile right next door. Brazil happens to be a place where many people have talked about going and getting certain psychedelic treatments from indigenous people like ayahuasca, right? They'll go there, they'll fly there on tours to go get it, treat it, go back. There's been documentaries, like, matter of fact, on Netflix, Gwyneth Paltrow produced a series called Goop Lab, GOOP Lab, and they talked about taking ayahuasca, peyote, LDMTs. Now, if you look at the United States, Oregon happens to be a legal state. California happens to be ambiguously and partial legal and decriminalized. So, Oakland, California is one of the first cities in California to take psychedelics, such as using mushrooms, you know, to a level where they can, people can go to a church, they join a certain church and they become members and they treat themselves. There are doctors that are experimenting with using psychedelics, for example, for some of their, veteran patients. And there's strong signs and studies that are saying, like, look, there's, allegedly that this is better than giving them some Adderall, you know, or Ritalin.
I would really be more inclined to take a trip to a different country to get inebriated. If, the states where I live currently don't really want that to be the thing. But honestly, who am I? I'm one of those guys that like to experiment. So the biggest thing is, how do people really live in this world to be either escaping the reality, to cope with the reality, to go along with how the normacies are played out. That just doesn't matter, right? It's all about personal opinion. So how do you, for those who are listening and watching, perceive taking medicine? Is it for you to escape? Is it for you to want to be a part of a high that just lets you relax? And do you use it for medicinal uses only, or do you indulge way more than normal? The biggest thing that I have for myself is the power of learning the Opr1 gene. And that gene in itself is the most interesting gene, because when I read here to you for today, it basically consists of an opioid substance produced naturally within the body. And their receptors, into which opioids fit like keys into locks, are binding with your actual receptors. So you're using a chemical change to keep a high when your body in itself already has that high. And just knowing that awesomeness about your body, it's like, do we really need to take anything else outside of the herbs that are really planted in the dirt? And if I have to sit here and be like, yo, every time my doctor gives me a whole bunch of different kind of opioided drugs like some oxycodons or some Percocets or maybe anything that's laced with fentanyl, because we'll be real. There are governments that still use illegal drugs to make their current drugs that are currently on the market. So when you have that key understanding, this is what's happening. People should wake up to the drugs that they're really taking. All the side effects that are going to come with those drugs, you got to be mindful of that, because I guarantee you, how many people are taking at least more than two drugs a day? It may not be somebody you know directly, but it could be somebody you may not really indirectly have a contact with, but you see it. Doctors prescribe me several pills just to get maybe some strep throat out of my throat, right? They give me a whole bunch of, they give you a steroid, they'll give you antibiotics, they'll give you all these drugs just for one situation. So if your body is currently breaking down from all these other drugs you're putting into your body, how dependent are you with taking those drugs? And the side note is, what really goes on when you're feeding yourself these drugs for an enormous amount of time that you're alive? It could be 5 or 10 years. How are you waking up? How are you feeling? It could be weed too, right? People can wake up feeling groggy off weed. It's not just pills. It could be alcohol. I know people who function better off alcohol in a sad way. So they
Isn't that a
say.
trip?
It's
Isn't
sad.
that a
It's
trip? I
sad.
mean, I've seen it. Got of let's say a close friend of mine, he pops a beer working heavy construction, like it's nothing. It's like a soda can. Psh. And
Yeah.
I remember working for a company called Kelly Moore Paint Company, like 20 some years ago, and we used to have a guy, we called him Oli, and Oli used to, he'd have a six pack of what was it? Olympia beer. I think that's what it was, like an old school, like 70s and 80s beer. Like you had to go to a certain liquor store just to even get it. But he'd be popping that or Miller Lite. He'd pop them like, hey, in the back of his truck. As I'm loading 5-gallon drums of paint in the back of his truck, and he's like, and he seems sober. And I'm like, what the heck? I thought this for me.
Functioning alcoholic. Yeah.
Yeah. But and I've also seen it when they stop drinking alcohol, the health really starts kicking in and it catches them in such a way where it's like, whoa, you deteriorated fast. And then that's how I found out, like, my ex next door neighbor, God rest her soul, when she stopped drinking, her liver completely failed and she died within like a couple weeks of her stop drinking. She was like 80 years old or
Wow.
something like that. And they
Wow.
said that her daughter was telling me, you can't get a liver transplant because you're an alcoholic. Can you imagine
That,
that? Like, and her
wow.
age, 80 years old. Sorry. Her daughter could have donated part of her liver, but they wouldn't do it. The insurance wouldn't cover it, at the time
She's a
because
high risk. Yeah.
yeah, her daughter's willing to give half of her liver or whatever. Believe it or not, a liver can grow. You can take it's one of the few organs that you can cut it and it will heal back
Yeah.
to a
Not if you're
degree.
an alcoholic.
Not a, yeah, you see, then there's
Not-
also the things like your kidneys.
yeah.
Uh, your liver, your kidneys are your filters of your system for your blood and all that stuff. Yeah, your fecal too. You're getting rid of the waste that whatever you ingest. So
It's
we
like a
have to take,
filter. Yeah.
yeah, so you got to take in consideration what that does and how far are you willing to take it. So
That's big news for people who partake in these events, right? With smoking weed, you have to worry about your lungs catching all the black tar, right? When you take pills, you have to worry about your liver breaking down, or your whole body just getting addicted to it, that you shut down mentally. So it's like a two-factor system. And alcohol, it's almost as if it impairs your vision, it also impairs your speech, and it also impairs the way your whole body is processing the foods and the chemicals that are in those foods through that liver. It's like you said, And now we're looking at different psychedelics and the serotonin that's in the bloodline or blood not bloodline in the blood vessel to assist people with actual issues with creating that natural high.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking at something real quickly here. For example, I'll share with you all the schedule. Basically, let me pull this up and the different schedules, drug schedules that they have. I found on this website called study.com, schedule for drug classification and drug list. So let me see if I can pull it up for you all. In the meantime, let's see. All right. Let me see if I can pull this. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now we see, and this is an article, this schedule of drugs. You have Schedule 1, Schedule 2, Schedule 3, Schedule 4, and Schedule 5. Now it's a pyramid system, right? And there's controlled substances. The article talks about the drug schedules. Let's see if I can a little bit more. Let's take a look. Drug schedules since the 1970s, the CSA enacted, as well as a substance that have been added since the time. 100 substances have been added. Substances also sometimes removed and transferred from one schedule to another. But what's interesting about this outlook is they still consider, for example, cannabis a scheduled one drug. It's still, very, very potent to a degree. So what are, and how they legalize or decriminalize anything that we take for that matter. It's just like cannabis itself is an herb. It doesn't become a drug. Like, the definition of a drug is basically once you mix something to make it a chemical compound for ingesting or injection
Right.
and
You know,
topical. Can't forget that.
so if I have to partake in any of these 1 through 5, level 5 substances being the worst, or level 1,
Mhm.
is level 5 being the worst?
Let me pull
Or
that thing right back up. Well, in that view, it shows that level 5 which is the basis as the worst. So let me
okay,
see.
yeah, because I didn't really catch that, but I did see that there was 5 levels of the substance abuse chart. Um, I'm
Let's see.
wondering if level
It
5 is more.
does have a video about it, and I haven't watched this all the way through. So um that's their content, and I don't know if I have, but
Scroll down a little bit. It doesn't say anything about the value of.
okay, so drug schedules, let's see if I can pull up more of the article. Oh no, it doesn't let me do
Probably got
that.
to register for
Unlock
all
this.
that.
Yeah, I have to create an account. But when I was looking, I was like, oh, wait a minute here, what's going on? Medical benefits, drug status, internal treaties, and on the way of countries handling legally drug. So, Schedule 5 drugs are those considered to have recognized medical benefits and low potent of for
Okay,
abuse.
so level 1 is the highest and level
Yeah,
5 is low.
yeah. So, just the way that they present it, if you look at the screen, you would think, okay, red, bad, orange, yeah, cautionary, yellow, very cautionary, green, you're good to go.
Well, I mean, I see how they're doing it. It's like Schedule 1 is the very tip of it all. Like that's I guess the least hardest to come by, but
Mhm,
it's still known. Like we're talking about the hard, heavy hitting drugs, and then
mhm.
Schedule 5. Schedule was it marijuana is a Schedule 3, Schedule 2.
I think marijuana is Schedule 1.
What?
Yeah.
Maybe now with all these new big pharma
Well, now
companies
more
moving
states
into
are
these
decriminalizing
dispensaries.
it, and I don't think the FDA has changed their. I'd have to look into what the FDA says, but I don't think last time I checked, and it's been a while, they have not changed because it is cannabis is still illegal federally
Right.
in all 50 states. It doesn't matter. So if a federal agent went into a dispensary and says, "I'm shutting you down," under FBI, as the authority of the FBI for federal law, they can do that. They can confiscate it all.
See, I'm worried about that whole big federal versus the state thing, right? Because if we
Right.
look at just how Texas in itself wants to be separated from the 50 United, what does that say, right? I mean, that's not also propaganda or foreshadowing, but it's also something to look into for the future. Because if one state like Texas has the identity of its own the way they want, Wyoming's next, Iowa's next. We'll be dealing with
Separation of
individual
yeah.
separation of the 50. So now we're going to be looking at no longer united. Texas is going to have their own little flag. And watch Georgia, when they become their own little state, right? They're going to have that battle between this flag and,
And
and
then,
the
well,
state flag.
Californians, we're kind of treated like the redheaded stepchild that nobody wants.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm sorry, no offense to redheads, but it's true. It's California. We're seen as like an infection. Like many of us have moved to Texas, Georgia, Arizona, New Mexico, back east. There was a migration of from east to west
Now it's
within the
west to
last 100
east.
years.
Yeah.
160 years. I mean, you got to think about, or is 170 years, when slavery ended, there was a great migration of going north to Illinois to the meat cutting plants and in the age of industrial revolution, even as west. I mean, Los Angeles and Oakland and these major hub cities, the Bay Area, they became refuges for people who came from the South and said, I don't want, hey, I'm never going to work. You know, I'm our people are being killed. We're not accepted. So go to a sunny state where it's easier for us to get along, and so now it's reverse. People are going from the west to east because the taxes aren't so high. They can afford to live. The cost of living is significantly low, but now you're seeing those states, the cost of living significantly going up because you're looking at the fuel prices. There's many things that affect the economy, and like the state of California, we're overtaxed, and that's why people are moving. They're like, "No, screw this. You got too much regulations. You got too many damn liberals."
But when that happens, people that move to those states, it's a trickle down effect. They're going to get
Right,
the
it
next
inflates them
experience.
too, and it creates their monopolies as well. So who's being
Hmm.
conquered where? And guess what? Drugs are gonna help you escape from the stresses of that. Keep doing it. It's all right, man. I got you. Just
As long as you have insurance, we'll give you a discount. we'll give you we'll give
exactly.
you half off on your escapism through the reality of what you call real life troubles, bills, real life of troubles and housing. Like you said, the housing market has went up. Here in Georgia, I didn't seen it. We missed our shot a couple years ago when it was like 3% interest rate. Now it's going up almost 6. So it's at the point where it's like, hey, the housing market is going up. People are coming in here. Those people, we're seeing a lot of California plates, a lot of Oklahoma plates, a lot of Texas plates, a lot of people from New York and Pennsylvania here in Georgia. So already people are coming here. So now those
Well,
houses
what's the
now
average
went from
price? I'd be curious.
150,000 to about now 300,000 as the minimum. But some areas they're asking for at least 500,000 to 600,000 minimum. That's pretty heavy, bro.
Yeah, so it goes out, and then people are working two jobs, two professions. I'm not talking working your main profession, then go working at a gas station. No, these people are taking their talents for their main and then go working 6 additional hours. Like they worked, say, like I know one guy, he works for Microsoft, right? But then soon as he's off work, he clicks in and works for a third party tech coding company for 6 hours more just so he can afford to live the way that he lives. He has too many toys. He's got a McLaren, he's got a Tesla, he's got $1 million home, can't afford his lifestyle. The guy makes 300K easy just from one. And then he's taking 6 hours more, and it's another salary, making more. And every time I see him, he's burnt out, tired, stressed, can't function right. It goes on and on. But as
So
we're
his
bringing
control factor, his multiplicity, his code
yeah,
switching, it's
big,
all playing a
big old
factor.
poison.
Pick your poison. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, hour. Thank you so much for coming out to Blank Canvas. Make sure that you subscribe and like to any of the YouTube stations. Blank Canvas. If you're having a hard time finding it, hit me up 72 the Architect on any of the social media platforms. Closing thoughts. I think we just need to be more conscious and make better choices for our longevity, and not just so eager to take a melatonin gummy to having to smoke herb every day, or relating to alcohol, or even popping pills like Adderall, or and other mental health treatment drugs without taking consideration of how can you treat your body better. So those are my thoughts.
When it really boils down to it, you're your own person and you can act according to the way you think, or you can take some advice from those who have the best interests for your well being. And at times, we're conflicted with listening to either of the or. The best thing that I can give you is me saying, from my own personal situation, everything isn't always good chemically induced. You have your own balance within yourself that you can regulate. Learn how to regulate that. And if you want to indulge frequently versus daily as a regimen, then by all means, that's the only advice that I would give to you. But with that, I am Mr. No Show.
And I'm 72 the Architect, and we'll see you Saturday at, what is it, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, or no, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern, and 10 a.m. Mountain Central with our co-host Cybershot. So make sure you tune in this Saturday. And also give you a heads up, we will be taking a break in the next few weeks. So we'll have a 2-week break before we start our next series and next season. So thank you all for coming out. We'll see you next time.